that the official opposition, should it be created, it should be funded. 0.2%, you say, of the last audited. Do you agree?
You see, we need an official opposition in the National Assembly and also in the county assemblies. But the idea of fixing a percentage, that is now a recipe for corruption. Because, you know, you're going to say maybe 10% or whatever percentage it is, and the money will be overwhelming at some stage, and the leader of the opposition will say that I must be in a hurry to complete this resource within a particular financial year. So maybe if that percentage Kipchumba is talking about, say, is 10 million, and you only need 1 million to run the office, as the financial period comes to an end, there'll be a stampede on how to utilize the balance of 9 million. And, you know, if you speak to accountants and economists, they'll tell you we need a zero-based budgeting, zero-based budget, so that at the beginning of every financial period, the Prime Minister or whoever is in charge of the opposition will state, this is the amount of money I need to run my docket for the next financial period. He will do the mathematics. I assume he'll be given an accounting officer, and he'll present his proposals alongside others. They'll be debated in the House, and they'll be accepted.
Tell our viewers, what would he be doing? What would the official opposition be doing with the budget they have?
Well, you know, if you're going to borrow the Westminster model, then I would imagine the leader of the opposition will appoint shadow cabinet secretaries, and each will have a docket that are maybe, if assuming that Matiang'i is the minister responsible for interior, and Kipchumba is the shadow minister, then he'll be now zooming into what Kipchumba is doing. He will need a budget, he will need resources, he will need to have assistants, people who can look at numbers. That will be the basic role. But, you know, this idea of saying, let's give him a voodoo thinking. If you give him that percentage, I mean, we've been saying that we need prudence in managing our resources. We need zero-based budgeting. And as I clear the point, the most important thing right now, we are not even supposed to be discussing whether or not that officer needs funding. There is Mora in my village in Kisii who is worried that the political leadership in Kenya, instead of focusing on economic prosperity, you know, now you are telling us, let's start creating positions for 2022.
All right.
Yet we are allowing on that point. And you know, these two gentlemen are behaving as if they are stakeholders for 2022. Because what they are proposing, let me just clear my point. What they are proposing, there are certain budgets that is mechanical. That this year is going to be 10%, so next year is going to be 12%. You know, these are the things we've been talking about, which is mechanical thinking. Let every coin be justified.
Yes, Mark.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. This is the role of someone called the leader of official opposition. He has just stated that he needs to be helped to function in his office. Now, imagine this leader of opposition has 30 MPs out of 330. At what point will he be given the appropriate budget? The reason why we are fixing the budget in the constitution and into the law so that he is given a fixed budget is so that the government of the day does not have the capacity to manipulate what those numbers are. That's the first part. The second part, you must understand that he will be basically running a small parallel government which needs to be ring-fenced from influence of the treasury, because we know even in the last 8 to 10 years, we know county governors have complained, saying that sometimes when a governor has an altercation with the head of state, the treasury can be known to hold certain funds for an amount of time to teach the governor a lesson. Right. So we cannot create a position and then put handcuffs on that position for him not to be able to perform.
All right. Ben, yes, Kipchumba.
I want to bring this mass to speed that currently county assemblies receive their money direct from the exchequer.
Yes.
Have we seen those county assemblies misuse the money? Yes. But do we have the mechanism of checking? That is the question of how. The question of why is to give them the percentage in the law so that we do not have the carrot politics where we are being told if you vote this bill this way, the money will come.
All right, we need to move on.
And then the other thing is this. Let me just finish this. Yeah. When Dismas talks about that we are going mechanical, I think Dismas confuses and forgets that we have the Office of the Auditor General. And if today you have to audit the Minister of Transport in this country, how can you go and audit, let's say, the BQs for building this SGR when you have no money? Where will you get the forensics? Where will you get engineers? The other thing is this Office of the Official Opposition Leader will be an office where people will be seconded there. You will have people experts being seconded there, let's say engineers, people, forensics, so that they can really help the country. And the Mora of Mosocho and the Chepchumba in my village can get real value. When we say a project is 10 billion, there are people from the office of the official opposition leader and government who can ascertain that it was 10 billion.
Okay.
You know, Ben, we are confusing what the opposition leader is supposed to be doing. The opposition leader is not supposed to be an auditor. He's not going to be taking over the responsibilities of the Auditor General or taking over the responsibilities of the DPP. He'll be running on reports which have already been prepared by the relevant bodies. I mean, he'll be running, I mean, you're going to have the Auditor General. The opposition leader will be running on the reports of the Auditor General. You do not expect that you're going to have an opposition leader, then he's going to have his Auditor General, he's going to have his DPP.
So he doesn't need a big budget.
Listen.
He needs a budget.
How
will
the
budget
allow me to refresh Dismas on news just out of America this very week. The opposition ran House of Representatives has just begun the process of investigating Trump's tax returns and his impropriety during elections. In parallel to what Robert Mueller is doing, in parallel to what FBI is doing. So let's be very clear, even in the Constitution today, as we speak, Parliament can call a cabinet secretary who is going through an investigation and do their own investigation.
But you know, the closing point here is, so that we do not confuse ourselves, there is no way you would expect that, say, Bichache is the opposition leader, is going to have a control of budgets, is going to have an Auditor General. You have to rely on the existing government infrastructure. And because you'll be running, your affairs for a financial year, you come up with a budget. We're not just going to be lumping money saying that next year we give you 10 million, the other year we give you 12 million. You have to justify.
I think I agree with Dismas. It's only that I think the way Dismas is framing it is making it look like the opposition leader will become the investigator. We have these institutions that watch over government and provide oversight at a bureaucratic level. But who watches over the watchdog? That is what the opposition leader is going to do to ensure that the reports from the Auditor General are debated in the floor of Parliament. People who are culpable are held culpable. If you're going to improve structures, we improve structures. And you need funds for that. It doesn't mean that if you're given funds, you're going to abrogate the powers of the other state agencies that are already funded. But I think where Dismas is misleading Kenyans is when he talks about Mora needs economic development. There is nowhere in the world where you can move economically without a proper political framework. And we cannot keep talking about Mora has to eat, Kenya has to eat, without addressing our political issues, because it is politics that determines how these resources are going to be shared.
All right, speaking of which, politics.
Yes, so we cannot keep fighting.
Saying that we need to have these positions in government, you should also be telling us when maize farmers are going to be paid, when sugarcane farmers are going to be paid.
We are mixing academia and knowledge.
That's correct. That's correct. Let us stick to the politics.
Yes, actually, we cannot discuss fertilizer in Chatham.
All right, let's stick to the politics. So another thing that the Deputy President has proposed is that the Senate should be made the upper house. Let me begin with you, Dismas. Will this change anything in the way legislation and oversight is done in this country? Or is it dead on arrival?
Well, you know, for me, I think the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Speaker of the Senate, they need to have a conversation and agree on their responsibilities. Because members of either houses, they keep on accusing each other. There are, like, for instance, the work of the Senate is really to anchor devolution. So they should be working on issues of devolution. If there is a crisis in the transport sector, that's a mandate of the National Assembly. But you see, the senators would say that if there's a crisis, say in Kisii, it has happened in a county, so we need to come in. So for me, I think they just need to sit down and agree. But it seems
that does not need to change. We don't need to change the constitution for that.
We do not need to change the constitution. I think, you know, the deputy president came up with many proposals so that when people begin to argue, they can scale them down maybe to 2 or 3. But right now, Ken Lusaka is doing a very good job at the Senate, so is Muturi. But they need to sit down and look at the standing orders and clearly agree. Right. Because you have an investigation, say, around Kenya Airways. The National Assembly is doing investigation, and then the Senate is doing investigation. So when you ask the Senate, why are you doing this investigation? They say the planes land at called Nairobi, which is outside them.
Akbichachi, so what Kenyans understand is that according to the 2010 Constitution, the National Assembly is the upper house. According to what the powers of the two levels of parliament can do, is there any value in making the Senate the upper house?
Well, there's one particular value that I have said for me, Senate has never made sense in this country. There's nothing significant they've ever done in their 8 or so years of existence, as in it's 5 years rather of existence, because the Constitution gave them a very narrow framework within which to operate, and then gave them very limited powers to do anything about that particular framework. I personally think that if you're going to have a senator, then he needs to have oversight over parliament in terms of what it does, especially given the quality of parliamentarians we seem to be churning out. We need a house that is sort of like a house of elders, a house of people who are actually more mature in politics and who've gone through the ranks, who are able to do that. Now, the problem is, will the Senate continue to be populated with those kind of people? That's the key question, because ever since we passed this constitution, we must realize and admit that we've lost our best debaters. When Orengo left parliament, debate went down. Martha Karua, same story. Uhuru Kenyatta, same story. William Ruto, same story. Raila Odinga, same story. So what we've done is we've forced our leadership, like the cream crop of our leadership, either out of politics into different houses, so that parliament now is left for people who would before then not even be able to have a second in parliament. So we need to look at the caliber of people that we put in parliament, and therefore the caliber of people we put in the Senate. But we definitely need to give Senate a role, otherwise it's just a fancy house with fancy titles.
Hesbon, what do you think about the Senate?
Well, I think I would go with Mark, that there is supposed to be some sort of clarity on what the Senate is supposed to do. Whether it is the upper house or not, I think for me is not an issue. The issue is what exactly is their role, and to what extent can they execute their role to its terminal end without going through Parliament. And if you have a Parliament, how then does Parliament execute its role to its terminal end without the approval of Senate? So that even if they're at the same level, you actually understand that this is what they can do, and they are evaluated on the basis of what they can do. Because we've had instances where they are duplicating roles, and instances where the role of one is frustrated because Parliament has been assumed to be having a lot of power. The issue of whether we have debaters or not, I think for me is not serious. The issue is just to what extent do we understand what they're doing and allow them to do that to its terminal end, so that they don't say that somebody interfered with my role.
Chumba, do you think the Senate should be empowered a bit more from what the National Assembly calls it? Nyumba was there.
My own 2 cents are this. One, you must give it to Senate. It is the only subset of parliament that you can sit down and watch and listen. The other one seems to be an organized political rally where people are seated, because you don't seem to understand what is happening. But when you sit down and listen to what our senators say, there's a lot of sense. But that can only be to a limited time, because you don't know what will happen post-2022. You might have the opposite happening. But also, time without number, reason has shown that the more you have, the more people you have, the IQ goes down. So I think that has been proven by what is happening. But now, our Constitution and the drafters of our Constitution, the framers expected that Senate and the National Assembly will be mutual in their relationship, and that the people who will be in those institutions will be reasonable men and women who will know that there is no bigger or lesser. But if Senate is to be retained as it is now, my opinion will be, one, make Senate not a full-time job whereby people earn a salary. Give them allowances, because why will you pay people on a full-time basis to come and impeach a president? It doesn't happen. 2, to wait for that opportunity which might never come. 2, to come and say and do some report which is being done by another house. So the thing is, give them, let's say they will be sitting 3 times in a week. We'll be paying them 20,000 per sitting. We remove this lucrative kind of sense in these offices. The other thing will be this: we can also pursue...
That's just one office.
Yes, we can also pursue another line that let us make these senators,
yes,
that a senator must in a week or in a month have a sitting in the county assembly, so that when they come to the national level, they bring value
this
to the
must seems to be
debate.
disagreeing with something.
Yes. It's now, according to the Auditor General, there is a devolution of corruption.
Yes.
And corruption is now domiciled in all the county governments. And we're supposed to oversight that is the senators. So the senators can actually not claim that they don't have a specific mandate. Outside waiting to impeach a president, they've got the oversight responsibility. But what are they doing? They're just crying like all the rest of the Kenyans, that the governors have engaged in corruption, mediocrity.
So they actually have work to do.
Yeah, they've got work to do.
There's an issue that Dismas must appreciate. You cannot pay a senator 1 million, let's say Wamatangi in Kiambu. Do you expect Wamatangi to use the 1 million to go checking what Waititu is doing in the villages? You must give these people funding. It is the same Dismas and Wanjiku and Mora who came here and said we don't want the 2 billion that had been allocated for oversight. We cannot expect people to do oversight like riding a bicycle, where you just pick it and go. We need funds.
And you know, the oversight...
It's very critical to ask the question, what is the role of the senator within the county assemblies? That's a big question. Because senators are aliens to county assemblies. Their relationship with the county speakers and the MCAs is completely, it's not even a dotted line like we would draw in engineering. There's no line at all. So unless you're friends with these people, most senators have no idea what's happening in the county assemblies. And unless we begin to fix what is the role of a senator within the county assembly and within the framework of counties, there's no way you can do oversight. Because how do you oversight these people who say it is criminal when you have no idea who that person is? So there needs to be that synergy. And what we need to do post-haste is we need to be able to define what is the role of the senator at the national level and at the county level, and then empower them to do so. Empower Sakaja to be able to go through the counties of Nairobi, go through its books and find out how many roads have been built. Is Sonko really in the office? Is Sonko always in Machakos? What laws can we change to make sure that Sonko is in Nairobi? That's what you need to be able to do.
Ben, as we wait to give senators more resources to, not to ride bicycles, but maybe to use SUVs and go through the counties, are you not embarrassed when you watch the Senate hearings? Maybe there's Governor Joe from Mombasa or Paranya or Roger Mong, when they come to present their accounts. It's very embarrassing because those governors, for some reason, they intimidate the senators. The senators have no capacity to ask questions. I mean, you've been given books and you can actually tell there's a mistake. But the senators don't bother. They don't apply themselves to study those accounts. You do not need additional budget to study the accounts of Nairobi County if you're Sakaja, or Wamantangi to study the account. I mean, accounts are prepared, they've been laid
so
before
they need
you.
to be empowered.
You do not need more money. You can go through the accounts, you study, you understand. Do you recall, you recall when she was a cabinet secretary, Anne Waiguru, and she was being grilled around the issues of NYS. I saw her go to the National Assembly, and the members of that committee, all of them were intimidated. They disappeared into a forest. It's the same thing which happens when the governors come in. The governors come in, the senators are intimidated, and when they've got the opportunity to pronounce themselves, like on the recent land issues, I mean, they just disappear. So it's not about an issue of resources. And you know, a workman, a poor workman, we don't always say that I've got a bad djembe or I've got a bad...
That's a story for another day. We need to take a look at one final thing here. Let's stay in Parliament. And Kipchumba, very quickly, another proposal is that the cabinet secretaries should be members of Parliament, ex-official members of Parliament. How would this work from where you sit?
From where I sit, the proposal to have them in Parliament is welcome to me as a person. Look at it this way. Once in a while, we have queries that ought to be answered in a real-time basis. We do not want to get to a situation whereby we have a Matiang'i who doesn't want to honor parliamentary group meeting summons. We need them to be there, and it is part of their JD that you are supposed to attend Parliament, let's say 3 times in a week, or so that it is also one of their key performance indicators, is not just to sponsor hashtags on Facebook and Twitter, but to appear in Parliament and express whatever they are sponsoring on Twitter to the public.
All right, thank you. Hesbon, would it be easier to oversight of what the cabinet is doing if they were ex-official members of Parliament?
Well, I think, there's a sense in which it would be easier to oversight, but I think their presence in Parliament has a lot more to do with representation, because it is in Parliament where we are. I think I'm in parliament courtesy of my member of parliament. So the issues that I'm facing and through public participation only get to my member of parliament. And it is only prudent that the technocrats in the cabinet who are charged with that responsibility have an interaction with the representatives of the people. And I think that can only happen in parliament. It's only that I think it's a bit tricky in the sense that you have to create a balance between to what extent are there, man hours demanded in parliament, and to what extent would they still be working, and do they have to be there physically? The deputy president has alluded to the fact that they need to be in parliament at least every week. So I think that is the nitty-gritty that we may need to attend to. Is every week sustainable? But their being in parliament speaks a lot more to representation.
Just to add a point to what
very quickly
Esbon is talking about.
Yes.
If tomorrow you visit the office of any cabinet secretary, you will be shocked that the queue of members of parliament there is so huge that once in a while, the normal Wanjiku and Mora cannot be served. So I think it is good also so that when these people are in parliament, it is easier.
Yes, Mark.
The thing that, and I have a very simple point. The problem with having a cabinet secretary who only reports to the president is they will stand on national TV and tell the rest of us to go to hell. That's what we need to avoid. Because to them, they're only accountable to the person of the president. They don't feel accountable to the rest of us, and that is a key issue and a key problem. If they go to parliament, then they will have to be accountable to us, because those sessions are televised, the Hansard is public, and they will have to be kept to task to answer all of those questions that are required to be there. So do they need to go there weekly? I think so. If in fact at most they need to go there monthly, and they need to begin to answer questions. Part of the reason we have no idea what is going on is none of them has gone to tell us how far have they gone with housing, with manufacturing, food security. They've not gone there to explain.
All right, Dismas, what do you think? And would you, somebody would wonder, would you prefer the CSS to be answering questions in Parliament, or the Deputy President, according to this proposal, who is the leader of government business, to be standing there and answering questions from the backbenchers, from the leader of official opposition? What happens in the House of Commons?
Well, in my view, the proposal by Ruto is solid, and we need to give him a pat on the back. Although he says many good things, but for some reason, people don't give him a pat on the back. There are many Kenyans who would run various departments of government with ease, who've got special skills, but for some reason, they are not electable. Like, for instance, Mark Bichache may want to join the cabinet, but the people in his village don't think that he's a solid man. And we need that special skill in the National Assembly. So those are the kind of people...
He's not a sweet seller.
Yes, he doesn't sell sweets. He sells ice cream to sick children. So it gives then the president the opportunity to nominate persons with special skills to go to the National Assembly. And in my view, they should be allowed, like in the Commons, to take questions. Because then you do not expect the deputy president or whoever will be in charge to have a very solid understanding. While he'll be having a global view, but you need the specific CS to answer questions.
Indeed. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be seeing what happens if indeed this referendum talk continues. The Deputy President giving a batch of proposals there, but at the same time saying that a referendum would not be Kenya's top priority. We shall see what happens. Let's take a quick commercial break here on our Sunday edition. When we come back, we shall be getting into some more politics and taking you to that Komarok declaration where Kalonzo Musyoka tried or sought to unite the Ukambani nation. A lot of things were said there. Stay with us.
Lakini watu wote wa Kenya tuwe kitu kimoja, tubadilishe hii katiba ili watu wote wawe pamoja kama ndugu. Na mimi nampongeza kwa kusema atakuwa mtu wa kazi ya mkono kwa Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Hiyo ni sawa. Wengine wafikiria akisema atakuwa kazi ya mkono ati kesho atapewa jembe aende Gatundu akalime. Sio hiyo wewe, akili gani wewe? Sote tu watu wa kazi ya mkono wa rais. Sote. Lakini hatusemi, yeye amesema wazi wazi, na msimamo huo uwe msimamo wa kila mmoja wetu, kwa sababu hiyo ndio utaleta umoja wa Kenya na maendeleo yanayoeleweka kwa kila jamii, kila kaunti, kila mahali. Nataka kumalizia kabla sijawaita wenzangu kusema hivi. Umoja wa Kenya waanza na wewe. Maendeleo ya Kenya yaanza na wewe. Ukiwa na fikra zozote za maendeleo, usikae nazo tu, waelezee wenzako, tusonge mbele kama Wakenya.